KB4KWZ, KB4GKI.
KB4GKI, this is KB4KWZ. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Okay, just want to let you know I was here, and if the phone cuts loose to ringing, you may lose me, but I'll be back as soon as I can. Don't know, you never know when this one's going to ring, but just thought I'd let you know. KB4GKI.
KB4GKI, this is KB4KWZ. That's affirmative. Okay. Everybody, welcome to the Emergency Communications Net. My name is Jerry. I'm located down here in Waxhaw, North Carolina, and I'll be the net control operator for this evening's net. The purpose of this net is to train ham radio operators in emergency communications techniques, different styles of communications, equipment, and how to work with the local emergency operating center, which is known as the EOC, and also we'll do some training in the National Incident Management System. Tonight we're going to have a guest speaker on the training here, and let me go ahead and recognize the stations that has logged into the net. We're glad to have KB4NET, Bill Faust. We also glad to have KD Niner, Juliet Delta Delta, Billy Marks. Also, we're glad to have WX4ACO, Dave. And also, we're glad to have KB4GKI. Okay, we'll probably have some more stations have to check in during the net, and after we have the short training here, we'll go down, just have general comments or questions we may have relating to the training. Tonight, the guest speaker will be Jimmy Holbrook, KB4GKI. Jimmy Holbrook used to be the North Carolina State Army Mars Director. He has also had deployed several times on deployments, and he also had worked with the American Red Cross. So Mr. Holbrook has a lot of experience under his belt, you might say. And tonight he's going to be talking on shelter in place. I know everybody wants to know what shelter in place means. So Mr. Holbrook will have the answers to that and probably a lot more information. So without any more introduction here, I'll be turning it over to KB4GKI, Mr. Holbrook. Go ahead, Jimmy. The training session is yours.
Now, this is KB4GKI. First of all, let me say thanks to everybody that showed up tonight for the training, and I'll try to make it quick and easy as possible, and that way we can get on through it, get our comments. Also, everyone remember I am on a cell phone, so I have to let off the key and let it reset and then come back again. Okay, continuing on with the training. Let me give you a little history on this training. Back the end of the year last year, which would have been 2016, early into 2017, we ran across a document from FEMA, and they were talking about basically sheltering in place. There's reasons behind this. The number one reason, if you're in a disaster area, it may be quite a bit of time before they actually get out there to you. I'll let it beep, and then I'll come back and tell you a real short story. before GKI. When I was in Army Mars and state director and doing different and various positions, there was a gentleman in the organization, and he had to leave his location. Well, they left in a motorhome and stayed gone for about 3 weeks, and they came back. They were able to get back in after about 3 weeks. When they got back in, they were there a good 2 more weeks, and somebody came by in a big truck. It was a military truck. They came by and they gave them 2 MREs and 2 bottles of water. Now this was at 6 weeks after the main event, and of course they were already in the recovery stage at that point. Let me let it beep again. That was quite a long time. You're looking at roughly 4 to 6 weeks, if not more. And then they finally got order restored, power back on, and first one thing then another. So basically that kind of sparked my interest. What are we going to do for 4 to 6 weeks with nothing if we're in a situation like that? Could you imagine trying to live on 2 MREs and 2 bottles of water for probably the better part of a week? Let me let it beep again. Okay, then, like I said, early 2017, the document came out about going into your community, your local community, and setting something up to where if you had to, everybody would have a central meeting point in the community. And if for some reason you couldn't get out of that community because of whatever type of disaster, the community could work together and support themselves for several weeks at a time. And that was one of the big bold pushes they was wanting amateur radio operators to do, and other organizations as a teaching function to teach these people in the community, you know, here's what we can do if we can't get out of our little community. Let me let it beep again. Well, lo and behold, shortly after that, one weekend, we get a Red Cross call, and at straight line winds that came through our little area. Where I was at, we were just on the edge of it, so we didn't really get affected that much, but we had to make a trip, which normally takes about 4 minutes or 5 minutes to get there, and it took us over 30 minutes because transformers on poles were sitting on the yellow line. This is how severe it was, just maybe a mile and a half from my location. So what took 4 minutes, 5 minutes, usually took almost an hour to get there. We finally made it. So basically all the roads was closed, and you weren't going to drive across power lines. You didn't know if they were still hot or not. And trees were down also. So, you know, you had to kind of snake your way around and find your way around. So in our little community here, that shelter in place or setting up something in the community would have really worked well. For GKI, I don't know how much I got cut off there, but anyway, the federal government, or FEMA, has a few pointers, and there's other websites that you can go to get other pointers, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. Let me let it beep. Okay, before GKI, the first point is, what is shelter in place? In general, shelter in place is appropriate when conditions require you to seek immediate protection in your home, place of employment, school, or other location when a disaster strikes. Okay, before GKI, and it goes on to say when. Okay, under the when, it is emergency officials would likely activate individuals to shelter in place when The chemical is expected to dissipate in a short period of time. There is not time to evacuate, or chemical fumes could quickly overtake you if you did not seek shelter immediately. I'm going to let it beep again. Okay, on that second point under the when would you shelter in place, there's a lot of times that things is going to happen real quick and you're not going to have time to be moved to a shelter. You're not going to have time to be able to take equipment out and set up at the shelter, so you're basically going to have to shelter in place. They're using chemical fumes as an example, but I've seen snowstorms, I've seen straight line winds hit an area. Multiple disasters can happen depending on the time of year it is, and you're not going to have enough time to be able to get out to a shelter even if there's one open. Okay, moving right along, we'll go into the where. Where would you want to set up in your home, or what if you were in a building, where would you want to set up your shelter in place? A safe room that is a hardened structure specifically designed to meet the Federal Emergency Management Agency's criteria and provide near absolute protection in extreme weather events, including tornadoes and hurricanes. So basically, you need to pick a place ahead of time, and depending on what type structure you live in as to where you would be. Surprisingly, in a mobile home, and this sounds funny, but I've seen it happen a couple of times. I've seen it actually the last round of hurricanes that came through in, I believe it was in Florida. We've seen a house, and it basically, everything was gone in that house except the closet. And the clothes were still hanging in the closet, believe it or not, and the closet was completely intact. So the closet would be a good place. Some people believe, which is true, if you've got a bathtub, take some pillows, get in the bathtub and cover up with those pillows and just hang on, especially if it's a tornado or a hurricane. Of course, probably in cold weather you wouldn't want to do that, but you could find pretty much anywhere in the house would be safe. You just have to have a lot of blankets and keep warm. K before GKI. Okay, we're going to post a link. I'm not going to go over the link here on the net, but we'll post a link on the Facebook page, and we'll also post a link on the website. And it starts out AmericanRedCross.org, and they go through different disaster situations and kind of give you an idea of what you need to pack up and have ready at your home in case you do need to shelter in place. And what would be real good for us as ham radio operators in our own community, especially if you're in the rural part of any state, whether it be North Carolina or wherever, get out in the community, talk to the people in the community, and try to get something like this set up. If you don't get a big supply of food, at least get a central meeting point to where everybody can get to that meeting point and find out, what we're going to do, and have one person or maybe two people to kind of be in charge of it. That way, and get you a plan, get you a disaster plan together for your little community. You never know when all your exits and entrance into that little community is going to be closed up, and may be closed up for quite some time. K before GKI. Jerry, that's what I have tonight. Returning the net back to you. K before GKI.
KB4GKI, this is KB4KWZ. Well, thank you very much, Jimmy, for the teaching on shelter in place. Basically, the shelter in place, let me just add a little bit to that. I have been, for the past 2 years, and probably got 2 more years to go, I'm going after my emergency management and disaster management BA degree in college. And one thing I have learned, that one of the biggest problems that emergency managers in any community has is to get the word out to the general public about being prepared in case there is a disaster, and that is including shelter in place. A lot of times we all think, well, that's not going to happen to us. That's going to happen to maybe someone down at the coast or up in the mountains or in a very large city. But usually we put that off, and then come to find out when things do happen, we wish we'd had listened at the first place. So it's good to think about this. It's good to have a plan just in case, and that's the reason why it's very important having a shelter in place and making sure that your radio equipment is in good working order, because definitely you're going to be needing it. Also, on the, let's say if we have a chemical situation, like down here where I live in Waxhaw, we have a major train track that runs from South Carolina. It goes all the way up into Monroe and then out east. And we have a lot of chemical tanker truck cars that comes through here. I have been giving it some thought from time to time. And let's say if there's a tanker car that's carrying chlorine and it happens to derail, and liquid chlorine, well, when it hits the air, it becomes a gas. And one thing about shelter in place, if there's like a chemical leak or what have you, is what they want you to do is make sure you're not using your HVAC at the time. You want to shut that off and seal every opening to your house. Make sure your windows are sealed and any spaces under your door is sealed. So again, you want to think about this before it becomes a necessity. And a good place to get a lot of this information is you can look up shelter in place on the internet under FEMA. And FEMA has a lot of documents and booklets, very valuable information that will give you step by step how to set up a shelter in place. Okay, that's the training for this evening. And what I'm going to do is go down the list here to get our general comments and if there's any questions. Let's see, up on top of the list here is KB4NET. Good evening, Bill. Your comments for the net.
Good evening, everyone. Here's KB4NET. Hope my transmit meter looks good on my computer, so I guess I'm coming through. And appreciate your training there, Jimmy. And I think there's a lot of common sense that goes into shelter in place. We try to keep some water on hand and food on hand so that we don't have to get out to the store and when things go in the pot. And so just some good common sense thinking ahead is a good start on sheltering in place. That's all my only comment. And appreciate folks being in that tonight. Back to you, Jerry, KB4NET.
All right, KB4NET, this is KB4KWZ. Well, thank you very much, Bill, for being here, and also thank you and Jars for allowing us to use your repeater on EchoLink here this evening. Yes, shelter in place, basically, it's just using your common sense. And one time, I believe, I heard the terminology shelter in place very recently was back during the hurricane that hit Texas. And there's one time I've heard one of the emergency managers just told people that they just going to have to shelter in place until help arrives. So basically when there's an emergency, everybody thinks that you might say the first responders or the cavalry will be right out to their house. Well, not necessarily. It might take a little bit of time, especially if you're off the beaten path, so to speak. So, again, you want to have sort of like a survival mentality and be ready in case if you had to hunker down a little bit for a day or two. Okay, next up on the list is KD9JDD, Billy Marks. Good evening, Billy. Your comments for the net.
KD9JDD. Good evening, Jerry and everybody else. Yeah, there was a lot of good information on there tonight. Being in Tornado Alley, the only other thing I might add to that is I have one of those small overnight suitcase on wheels that I have packed with kind of search and rescue type gear. I got a pair of tactical boots, a hard hat with a light on it, knee pads, and heavy gloves. So that way, like after the tornado hits or whatever, we can go out and start helping other people get out of their apartments. That's about the only other thing I can add. KD9JDD, we standing by.
Okay. Kilo Delta Niner, Juliet Delta Delta. Billy, glad to have you on the net this evening. My question is, what's your location? I know you're in the 9th call district. You're talking about being in Tornado Alley. Maybe you just mentioned it. I might have failed to catch it.
Yes, sir, Jerry. I'm in Goshen, Indiana. I was originally from Texas, about 30 miles west of Fort Worth, so I kind of moved from one end to the other. But yeah, we get quite a few tornadoes and severe storms through here. Luckily enough, no hurricanes, though. KD9JDD.
Okay, Billy. Yeah, I lived out in Texas myself for a while. I'm not from Texas by no means, but right after my wife and I got married, we moved out to Texas, and actually we lived in North Dallas, up there around Lake Louisville, near Grapevine, and we were right in the tornado alley. Fortunately, we didn't have any tornadoes come through there when we were living there. But anyway, yeah, tornado people that live in tornado alleys, I know we probably preaching to the choir there. Y'all probably already know what shelter in place is. So, but it's always good to review certain training just to brush up, make sure that we're doing the right thing, or maybe we might pick up something we didn't know before. So good to have you on the net this evening, Billy, and looking forward to having you back with us again next Saturday evening. Okay, the net breaks with KD9JDD. I'll move to Jimmy Holbrook. That's KB4GKI. No, he just gave the training, but I'll go to you, Jimmy, in case you have thought anything more about shelter in place or any additional comments.
This is KB4GKI. Good evening to everybody again. The main thing, there's 2 points that you need to take from any of this training, especially the shelter in place. Number 1 is planning is the key. And if you've had any incident command training up through a certain point, you'll be recognizing the phrase that I use a lot and Jerry uses sometimes, follow the planning P. And the second point is always, if you can, get out in your community. Let people know, hey, I've had some training. I am a ham radio operator. We will be able to communicate. And do your planning ahead of time. Don't wait till the week before and start planning. You've got months ahead of time in most cases. Go ahead and start early and get your planning done. Just good to be here on the net, Jerry. Enjoyed doing the training. Had to get back into training mode, but I enjoyed it. KB4GKI.
KB4GKI, this is KB4KWZ. I knew you would enjoy doing the training. I know it probably reminds you the early days in Army Mars here. So, guys, I tell you, Mr. Holbrook here was a great Army Mars North Carolina director. And during the time his being a director of the North Carolina Army Mars, I also served under him as a state training officer. So we did a lot of training, and like I said earlier, Jimmy has a lot of experience under his belt. I mean, he actually been out in the field and done it. So he's been there and done it, so to speak. So we're very fortunate to have Jimmy with us on the nets here. Okay, next up on the list is KK4 Sierra Romeo Oscar. Randy, good evening, Randy. Your comments for the net.
Hi, good evening. Sorry, I was a little bit on the wrong screen here. It took me a second to catch up. Sorry, I'm a little bit late getting into the net, but understanding that it's sheltering in. Fortunately, where I'm at here in Middle Tennessee, we don't really have the severe storms. We do get some crazy thunderstorms, and we do have the occasional tornado from time to time. Mostly, we just get good enough winds to take down some trees and take down some power lines, and we'll block roads for a little bit, and we'll do some damage to houses. But fortunately, we don't have any of the real bad stuff like some of the people in the coastal areas face. However, that being said, yes, definitely train. In fact, I'm part of the Woodson County, Tennessee Aries group, and this next Saturday we're going to do our set exercise, and our focus this time around is making sure that everybody is up on WinLink, that's emailed by the radio, and just all those kinds of exercises. You can get a group together and work on that kind of stuff so that, when the time comes, you're ready. But that's what I've got, so back to net control.
Okay, KK4SRO, Randy, this is KB4KWZ. You mentioned one item that I'm planning to do some training here on very soon on some future nets here. I'm looking forward to getting one of the WinLink planners who helps to form the WinLink program to maybe stop by and give a little bit of WinLink training. So if I can get him to do that, that'll be great. And if when I get that set up, I'll definitely put that on the website. And also, we have a Facebook page. Everybody can go to that too. So, WinLink system, like you mentioned, is a very valuable tool when it comes to digital communications, especially now on the WinLink system. They already have the ICS forms on them. So not only the ICS forms, they also even have the national traffic form on there. I know one station last week talking about the national traffic system. National traffic system is great to use, especially, for instance, if you have, let's take Puerto Rico, for instance. They recently have some ham radio operators deployed down into Puerto Rico, and their job was to pass traffic out of Puerto Rico to other hams in the state so that they can pass messages to their loved ones, let them in the state, and let them know that everything's okay. Situation like that, the national traffic system is fantastic in doing that. But also, we need to learn how to use the ICS 213 form, and that is in case if you need to pass traffic from a ham radio station to an agency. An agency will not know what the national traffic system format is, and that would create some confusion. We're going to be talking about that too. So there's a lot of interesting topics that will be coming up in the near future. Okay, Randy, good to have you on the net this evening, and please invite everyone in your areas group to join us on Saturday night. We'd be glad to have them. Next up on the list is November Oscar 6, Tango Whiskey, Mike. Good evening, and your comments for the net.
Well, this is my first time joining the net, so I'm excited about being able to do that once I figured out where you're all at. But I have nothing to offer. The only thing that I just appreciate you guys are out there, and in any area I can help out. But at the same time, more information is needed for what y'all are doing, and I am interested in the WinLink. Thank you.
Okay, November Oscar 6, Tango Whiskey. This is KB4KWZ. Well, thank you very much for the comments there. Basically, we feel the same way. There's a lot of good training that the ARRL presents on being emergency communicators. There's other sources in training for becoming emergency communicators. But what I have sensed over the past years, we had a lot of people who actually knew ham radio operators always come up to me, send me emails or on Facebook saying we wish we could check into your net. We want to find a place where we can learn a little bit more about emergency communication. So this is the reason why we had the net here on EchoLink. Everybody can participate. And actually, I did not tell at the very beginning, this net right now is being streaming live over YouTube. So you can go to YouTube and look up Emergency Communications Training Net. And for those who are not ham radio operators, or those who are ham radio operators and they just can't, for some odd reason, their radio is down and they can't join us, that particular night, they can always listen into the net. So, yes, this type of training is very needed. And also in the future, we're planning to maybe train on how to send voice messages. That'll be interesting too. So I invite everybody who is a ham radio operator and is interested in emergency communications to join us. Okay, well, Mike, good to have you in the net this evening, and definitely we'll try to get the WinLink training set up as soon as I can here. And when I'm able to get that set up, I will let everybody know. Okay, that's the list as I have it this evening. Is there anybody who's listening who wants to join us for the Emergency Communications Training Net? If so, please call KB4KWZ or just check in here. All right, like I stated before, this training is going out live over YouTube. And also, let's get the word out that we're here every Saturday night at 9:30. And being going out on YouTube and being on EchoLink, this net is being heard worldwide. So it's just not just in the United States. Is anywhere that anybody can get access to EchoLink, or they can look us up on YouTube. Also, we have a web page you can always go to, and I know this past week I failed to put the training down here, but we do have a section on our website where we have the training to be listed. The website address is Echo Mike, Charlie Oscar, Mike Mike, November, Echo Tango.org. That's Echo Mike, Charlie, Oscar, Mike Mike, November, Echo Tango.org. That's EMCOMMNET.org. Please feel free to check us out at the website there. There's going to be more information added, especially what Mr. Holbrook talking about. We're going to be putting some more information about shelter in place on the website. And also there's some important videos there that you can watch too. And we're also listed, for those who are on Facebook, we are on Facebook. You can look us up, Emergency Communications Training Net. We have a group, and we also have a page. So the reason why we have a group is I can list important files or information that can be looked up, whereas on a page you can't do that. Let me let the repeater drop here. Again, I wanted to say thank you for everyone who checked in to the net this evening. I want to give special thanks to Mr. Holbrook, KB4GKI, for the fantastic training on emergency in place. I want to give special thanks to the JARS repeater system, allowing us to use their repeater and EchoLink system for this net. This is KB4KWZ. We're now bringing down the net at the time of 10:07 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'd like to invite everyone to join us again next Saturday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time for the next Emergency Communications Training Net. This is KB4KWZ signing clear, and everyone have a great week.